Hello, my dear friends, and welcome back to Grade 08, the most goofy series on YouTube. Not the greatest anymore, I'm sorry, but that has been replaced with insert generic gameplay series here. I don't know, something. Anyway, welcome back to Grade 08. Today we're doing the Acceleration Car Pack, and yes, despite my episodes being structured on doing 2 cars at a time, I'm gonna do all 4 of them because they're new, because they're pretty cool, because people are talking about them, and frankly, I like them, like, quite a bit. So I thought I might as well do all of them in the same video. So because it's gonna be very long, let's jump straight into the first one, which I think had the most hype around it, at least when the car pack came out, and that would be the McLaren Sabre. Now, my thoughts on this car are the following. It's very average. That's all I'm gonna say. Now, in terms of drifting, all these cars actually did either pretty decent or very, very well. This is one of the 2 cars that did just pretty decent, but that's still okay. So let's start with the flaws. It has a ridiculous lack of acceleration, which is very ironic because this is from the Acceleration Car Pack, and yeah, Forza needs to really start coming up with better names, because this pack, spoiler alert, has anything but acceleration based cars. All right, and yeah, this is a prime example, I suppose. But other than that, it's pretty alright. It has a lot of downforce, and I didn't really like that because it's hard to like link sections and whatnot. But I mean, other than that, the car is alright. It's fine. The amount of power is a bit underwhelming, but I guess I somehow managed. It's still pretty smooth, and it scored a mid 143, which is not too bad for sure. So give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a pretty fair drift car in that regard. However, because of all that downforce, it is a Okay, sorry. It's 9 in the morning as I'm recording this, and I have not slept at all. So yeah, it is, as I was saying, it is a pretty slow car. 423 is the most I could do, which is not going to give it even an average rank. It's going to give it a 3.5 out of 10. It is what it is. We've seen it happen before. And this is definitely this car's weakest point, the acceleration, which again, incredibly ironic, but this is Forza. You're going to have to get used to this. So yeah. Very slow. Basically, after 150, the car just refuses to accelerate. It goes on a strike. Thank you, Travis, for doing this for me again with all 4 cars. And because this thing got a 14 something, 2.5 is all I can give it. However, this is what I would argue to be this car's strongest point, kinda, sort of. And that's its grip, because it is not bad. I mean, as you could imagine, as I also mentioned before, it's got a decent amount of downforce, and as a result, it is not too bad around the track. However, it is also, I guess, pull down, or insert like expression here, because I can't English. It is also not helped a lot by the fact that it has no acceleration whatsoever. So it did an alright lap. I had a pretty decent time testing it as well. Like, it's a pretty alright car. I did a 45.8. So yeah, 7 out of 10. Not bad. I was surprised to find out it gets off-road tires as well, which is, like, it's huge, it's big. It's already gonna boost the off-road rating of this car by like 2 points at the very least, I think. And yeah, it does have the grip. Like, it has pretty decent amount of grip. Again, it is just being held back by the fact that it has no acceleration whatsoever. The irony ensues, I suppose. But I mean, other than that, it did alright. It did average. You're gonna notice here in a sec that this car is overall very average. And I mean, I was kind of hoping that we would finally encounter some average cars, because all the cars that I tested so far are either very bad, very, very good, or just very niche. And like, none of them were like truly the average car. And this is finally one of the first that we've had. But yeah, this car is about as average as you can get for this. 1 minute 2, which is, I gave it a slightly above the average. So yeah, 5.5 out of 10. And with that in mind, this car got a total of 25.5 out of 50, aka a 5.1 out of 10. Like I said, as close to average as you can get, which, yeah, I expected the moment I started testing this. And yeah, you're getting exactly what you think you're getting. Now, is the next car any better, aka the Super Van 4? Yeah, no, it's not. It's also arguably the like the I don't know, the Joker. I wouldn't call it the Joker. Like the wild card of the pack. Every car pack that comes out, these days, they always have that one card that stands out among the others as like weird or quirky or whatever. This is definitely this pack's version of that, because it's a fucking EV van that has 1,900 horsepower. Yeah, it stands out, but at the same time, I'm glad it exists. I'm glad they introduced it, because it's a whatever car. If I'm being honest, it's pretty niche. However, you would not believe your eyes when I say that this car is not too bad for drifting either. And I mean, the only reason for that is because it has the same amount of power as an Evija, and Evija is meta, I suppose. So yeah, it's just a much worse Evija, but much worse Evija still is able to do pretty well. As you can see here, it got just barely under the Saber score. So yeah, still a 7 out of 10. Surprisingly decent. This is where it beats the Saber, however, because it has almost 700 extra horsepower, which you would think would end up to more in terms of top speed, more than like 10 kilometers an hour. 15, I guess, but no. 437 is, I believe, exactly the average of 5 out of 10. And yeah, you wouldn't really expect much from a car shaped like a van. Again, the irony ensues. This car is not quick. This car is particularly not quick because it's electric. And it has 2 gears. They are customizable, of course, but the fact that it only has 2 gears drags it down by a lot. It did 14 point something, which, yeah, 3 out of 10. Can't really give it much more than that. It is pretty awful. Now, this car has a funny amount of downforce and also a funny amount of weight, but the funny amount in the weight part is a funny in a bad way, because it's very heavy. It weighs 2 tons, even with I don't even remember if it gets weight reduction or not. But anyway, it's not amazing, is all I'm gonna say, but it's also not as bad as you would imagine. I got this lap relatively quickly, like this is the 10th lap, and as you can see here, and I was fairly satisfied with it. And yeah, it's alright. Like, yeah, sure, there I did a little oopsie and I oversteered, but it's alright. I really don't think I can do much more than this, really. So yeah, gets just barely above the average. It does not get off-road tires, unfortunately, and even if it did, I don't think it would have done well, because again, no acceleration and a lot of weight in no off-road tires. You can already imagine the absolute disaster recipe that this car puts out. I selected a Ghost that was quite a few seconds slower than the average, let's just say, and I was expecting this car to be around there or like slightly beat it. It beat it by like 2 seconds, which is okay. It's a little bit faster than I imagined, but it's still very slow. And as you're watching right now, it has pretty decent power output at the top end, because it's an electric car, of course, and it's got like all the torque in the world. But other than that, the suspension is bad. Well, to be honest, everything was bad. This car is not pleasant to drive whatsoever, and it is not fast, so this is what it's getting. Yeah. So, in total, the Supervan 4 got a 24 out of 50, aka a 4.8 out of 10. That is a bit more than I was expecting when I tested this, and it's just very slightly below the average, which again is very surprising. It gets carried by the drift score, in my opinion. I don't know how it got that score, man. But yeah, it's a whatever car in my opinion. It's fine. It's a gimmick, you know. Again, I'm glad it exists because it's pretty fun. But yeah, moving on to the objectively speaking best car in this pack, and the one that I think most people realize it's actually very good. That would be the Genera, and yeah, I like this car. I like it quite a bit. It's able to get very competitive scores on this drift zone, but it's also very hard to master, to use. You have to use very oversteer settings on it, and it snaps a lot. It has a lot of, it's a big learning curve is all I'm gonna say. And this is one of my earlier clips, I think, but I still got a fairly decent run, I suppose. But yeah, it's very snappy. It's great. I got a 144.2 here, and the next run is, I believe, a 144.3, and I consider that 144.3 to be sorry, a pretty bad score for this car. It can do so much more than that. I believe with like another hour of practice, I could definitely get a 145, especially if I also like fine-tune my setup a little bit. But yeah, no, it's a great car. It's definitely very good for this. It has the it's got the whole recipe in it, but it's kind of out of control. So yeah, it's gonna have to be settled on a 9 out of 10. I don't think I would have given it a 9.5 anyway, but it's very solid. So yeah, I'm satisfied with that to an extent. It isn't very fast, but I wouldn't call it slow either. It's just, it doesn't have an above average aero coefficient. I believe it has an RV8 in it, which puts out like 13,500 horse. Was that correct to say? Anyway, yeah, 443 is what I managed to get on a pretty casual run, which is ever so slightly above the average. So that's what's gonna get 5.5. This is arguably the only car in the acceleration car pack which deserves to be in an acceleration car pack, because it's pretty decent in terms of acceleration. It's nothing crazy, don't get me wrong. But fun fact, it actually tied the Honda NSX, which Travis also tested ages ago. It tied it to the decimal, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's got a 6.5 out of 10. Not too bad, but yeah, nothing too crazy either. So well, this is probably its weakest. No, this is definitely its weakest aspect, which is its grip. It is not very grippy, and that's whoa, okay, sorry. That's kind of understandable, because this is, even though it's a new car, like it's recent, it's only a remodeled, retextured, whatever version of an older race slash sports car or whatever, and it feels that way. Like, it drives exactly like a car from the 70s would, and even slicks and aero and weight reduction and oversteer settings and all that couldn't really save it. Only acceleration slightly did, but nah. Overall, it's average. That's all I'm gonna say with that 48. It is, however, a pretty decent off-road car. It's got acceleration and good suspension. Unlike the other ones, like literally every other car from this car pack has awful suspension, except for the fourth one, the Shelby, which I guess has pretty decent suspension. The other two have just terrible suspension. This car is pretty solid. Like, I definitely can't complain, and it has everything you would expect from a decent dirt car. It oversteers like very easily. It's got good power, lightweight, and all that. It's good. It gets off-road tires, I'm pretty sure. So yeah. The only problem is that this car is definitely not meant to be driven on dirt in S2 or even S1. It is very good in A-Class, and that's a little bit of a shame, because I test these cars maxed out, but it's definitely good to know that it's very strong in at least one class. So yeah, it gets a 7 out of 10. Definitely good. Definitely something I wouldn't pass up on. And there it is. The total for the Genera is 33 out of 50, which is a 6.6 out of 10. Strong car for sure. It almost gets a bone shaker score, which we all know how fucking broken that car is. And yeah, I can say this was the most fun to test just because it is the strongest overall and the quirkiest. But I can't say it was my favorite, actually, because my favorite car is actually the last one, the Shelby GT500. And the reason it's my favorite car is, first of all, it looks fucking phenomenal. Like, I genuinely think this is the best looking muscle car in the game. And that includes modern muscle cars as well, which, let's be honest, none of them looks amazing. But this car just looks fantastic, first of all. It drives pretty well. And it actually drifts so smoothly for some reason. Like, I don't understand why this car got pretty much the same score as the Jetta, which you would expect, right? Because that car is light, it's got good power, it's got small wheelbase. This car is a fucking tank, and yet it kind of tied it. So the run that you see here is whatever. It's a 144.6. It was decent, all right. It was good run. This one is a 144.2 or 0.3 or something like that. It's around there, which is just insane to me. And I feel like I also messed it up on like 2 occasions, like quite a bit. So I could have pulled a 145 with like a rewind or two, which is insane. Like there, I transitioned way too early, and I guess this section here was good. But man, I don't know. It's just something about this car that makes it so smooth. I absolutely loved using this for drifting. It gets an easy 9 out of 10 for that score. It's so good. I don't understand why. It makes no sense. Probably shouldn't have given it a 9 out of 10. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I've improved my runs more and more, and I'm definitely gonna do a video where I revisit some of the cars and re-rank them. But yeah, going back to this, it gets a 433/434 whatever, because I entered telemetry there and we couldn't see it. I still put 433 on the spreadsheet, which is about as average as you can get, maybe a little bit below average, which is why it gets the 4.5. It's a whatever. It doesn't have a good barrel coefficient, but you would expect that from an old muscle car. It also doesn't have great acceleration either, but again, you would not expect that from a muscle car unless it's, I guess, the Dodge Dart, but we don't talk about that. That's literally rigged by the developers to be faster. Yeah, it's about as fast as the Ford Supervan, so can't really give it more than that. It hurts because I really like this car, but I can't really do more than that. And unsurprisingly, it's also not very quick around the track, and which again is rather disappointing because I love this car, I really do, and I really wanted it to do good. And I didn't even test it for so long. I mean, if you look at the counter there, I've only done like 7 laps, and I mean I did a couple more laps, and especially not including the ones where I have to reset the entire blueprint because I want to like adjust the gears and whatnot, which I do that with almost every car. And that's why you see sometimes you see like these I don't know 3, 5, 6, 7 laps. It's because I just reset them, the blueprint, in order to fix gears in my setup and whatnot. But yeah, I wanted this car to do good. It doesn't really. I really tried, but yeah, it's alright, I guess. It's just average, man. But I mean, below average, but you get what I'm saying. It was expected. And finally, the dirt section, which again, not great. It's S1, by the way, so maxed out. It's S1. Oh, and yeah, I flagged the lap at the beginning. I didn't realize that, and I only realized that when I started editing video, which doesn't always happen, but I guess it does. But as you can see there, I kept it in. I was like, nah, dude, I'm not doing 20 minutes more of this just because I missed out on that mistake. The lap would have been exactly the same if I didn't tag that. Like the difference would have been insignificant. Okay, so forgive me on this one. I suppose we don't usually do flag laps here on the channel, but this was gonna be one of those rare exceptions where you're gonna have to forgive me. All right, cool, thank you. Now back to the Shelby. Yeah, not amazing. It gets off-road tires, of course, but it's pretty heavy. It's not grippy. It's a muscle car, man. It's not gonna be amazing. Like the Dodge Dart is the only exception. It's only because the developers wanted it to be good. So yeah, it gets a 104 or something like that, which again below average, but it is what it is. So there it is. The Shelby actually beats the Ford Supervan. Ha! To your face, motherfucker. It beats it by half a point. Let's go! Big wins on this channel. 24.5 out of 50 for 4.9 out of 10. Very average cars in this pack, but I appreciate that a lot because we don't get to have that very often. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna try and hop back into the 2 cars per episode formula. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time.